Dang.
First, some advice right there.
You caught me slipping. I didn't bring one.
Always take notes.
Dang.
I never know what you're going to say.
It's a good point. Me either.
All right. Firstly, thank you everyone for making it. It's my first event, and I'm actually surprised. Ever hosting an actual event, like.
Excited.
Thank you. All right. Always been part of events, never hosted one. Have been wanting to host one for a long time. So this is amazing, and I appreciate everyone coming here. Genuinely do. The idea or the aim behind, I'm going to keep on doing these events now from here on, is to just go dig deeper into topics that I'm honestly personally interested in, but then more importantly, dig into the people that are deep into those topics. So people like Marc, people like Elle, they're super into this whole idea behind community, what it means. Of course, we're all part of a community. It sounds like this woo-woo word, but we're all part of communities in a different way. But some of us have actually gone beyond themselves to just try to create that for them, you know, just like figure that out for themselves. And I just want to use this platform as a way of getting people insights or some sort of idea on how to go about navigating that for themselves. So that's the idea behind this talk or conversation, chat. And I want to start off with Elle. First of all, just a quick intro for anyone who doesn't know Elle, and then Marc after Elle. So go ahead. Just to give a little intro.
Sure.
Yeah. What you do right now, day job or not, whatever.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Hi, everyone. There's a lot of folks in here who I have seen on many Saturdays at 8 in the morning on my walk. So hey, guys, good to see you. My name is Elle Beecher, and during the day, this is what I get paid to do, I am a PM at Meta. So if you've ever wanted to complain about the Ads Manager product, you can come find me. And so I'd love to hear it. And then outside of that, what I absolutely love to do, and I'm very obsessed with, are my walks, also known as the BoardWalks, which is a weekly event where I bring together curious, kind, open-minded Ted Lassos in every city one day, but in two right now, Austin and San Francisco, to brainstorm on topics that they bring. And that could be on everything from relationships to health to how you find community, how you find friends, and everything in between. And I've hosted 71 walks here in Austin for the last, thank you, Marc.
Big deal.
71 walks over the last 71 weeks, and we have hosted 16 walks in San Francisco. And more cities soon, coming in January, so stay tuned. But that's me and what I love to do.
How many of you have been to the walks, by the way?
Woo-hoo.
That tells you a lot about the group here. And then Marc, please go ahead. Quick intro.
As quick as I can be. Everybody, Marc Nathan. I've seen some of you on the walks before. I've got a lot of friends here, so thank you for coming. And some also new and potential friends as well. I've been doing community type stuff, which is very broad. It's a very broad brush because nobody really can put a specific finger on what a community is. Community is, in my mind, it's where you feel most comfortable. And I like to make people feel comfortable, so I do a lot of events. I host a lot of events. I've been doing this. It's going to make me feel very old when I say this. I started doing my first regular event in 2007. And
What was that event about?
It's called Open Coffee Club. It's called Open Coffee Club, and it's a very casual coffee meetup that has been running in Houston, where I'm from originally. Since then, it's still going on now. They've changed the name, they've changed the format a little bit, but we do 2 of those events here in Austin as well. So continuously running events, and I've branched out into some others, and I've done the worst thing I could do, which is start a regular happy hour. A lot of headaches.
Not happy about that one.
Yeah. But it's fun. So I do community as a passion, as something that's personal to me, but the real reason I do it, to make no mistake, it's professional services. It's business development. I'm a business developer by trade. That's what I do for a living. And in my mind, the very best way to create customers is to create friends. And so I host a lot of events and I make a lot of friends, and hopefully those trickle down to my employer's customers. It's as simple as that. I do love it. There's no question. I have certainly a passion for it, but it is also very professionally challenging and rewarding.
Awesome. All right, so there's two things. I mean, there's one main thing that was intriguing about both of you that
Just one?
made me want one common intriguing thing, which is that you guys are both very curious about other people and observant about other people, but more importantly, equally observant and curious about yourselves. Like anything that I've watched about you guys has been filled with self-awareness. There's a lot of self-awareness about who you are as a person. You're completely fine with saying you're not an entrepreneur.
Absolutely true.
As many times as possible. And you're clear, you know very clearly about who you are as a person as well. You're consistently growing. Now, how has that helped you in building a community? And why is that important, that curiosity?
You want to go first?
No, and I'll tell you why.
Tell me.
I'm gonna retrace that question.
Okay.
I think we need to start with why.
Why?
Why do we do community? Why do you care about the community so much?
Oh my gosh.
It's a
Okay.
bigger question, but I think it's gonna help level set where the conversation's going.
It
That's
actually
all right.
really relates to what you just said. So to understand the walks, you have to understand my origin story. So when I was in college, I was called the mayor. And I was just in every extracurricular. I was an orientation leader. I created like a bunch of wacky projects, like a spin-off of Humans of New York, if you know that project.
Humans of UF?
Yes,
Yeah.
I went to the University of Florida, so if any Florida fans in the house, let me know. But I created all these wacky projects. I was very well known, and I think I felt so deeply connected to everyone on that campus of 50,000 people. And then I got my first job here in Austin, and I remember panicking because I knew no one in Austin. I went on LinkedIn, I typed in Austin, Texas, and I had zero connections who lived here. And I was like, wow, all right, we're gonna pack up my bags and I'm gonna figure it out. And then it was really, really hard for me to find my people, like impossible for years. And so I went from feeling extremely connected and knowing what that felt like to feeling extremely lonely and extremely disconnected. And then I had to figure out a solution. So that's where the walks really came from. I think they came from a place of knowing those two extremes. I can build for both states because I've been in them. I understand the experience of someone who's feeling disconnected, and I understand the experience of someone who feels very connected. And the walks are kind of a space for everyone who has shared values, who might be on the more disconnected side or the more connected side. And that beauty of bringing people who have shared values in those different states together is why the walks are so special. So I would say like my why is very much to solve my own problem. I wanted to solve my own feelings of disconnection, so I invented a way to do that pretty much by accident. And it's helped a lot of people who are in the same exact situation that I was in when I created the walks.
And what was that situation exactly? Like, you were lonely. Like,
Absolutely.
there was no one around you here in Austin.
Yep.
So how did curiosity help in that scenario?
Yeah. Oh, great question. So I love the word curiosity because I've said this in my answer. The walks are really bound by three main values: curiosity, kindness, and open-mindedness. I think a lot of people see community and think of community as activity-based. I flip that on its head. I create community around values. So those big three, curiosity, kindness, open-mindedness, is what everybody who steps into my space, my walks, shares. So when you bring together people of shared values, curiosity being my favorite one of all of them, because just to give you a little bit more color, we're not just walking. You show up Saturday, 8 a.m., which Ryan recently called the price of admission, because they are free, but getting there Saturday at 8 a.m. is very difficult on purpose, because I would rather have the right people than the most people. And that's very much a core part of what I do. I really, it makes my job a lot easier as host to have the right people there, rather than 500 people who don't have shared values that I now have to community manage, because I take that very, very seriously. So I would say, how does curiosity come into that? Literally every part of it. I mean, from the experience design to how I show up in feedback conversations with people who come, just to click on that, double click on that a little bit. When you are hosting a weekly event that's open to anyone and everyone, that will put some hair on your chest. That is hard. I mean, I'm telling you, I've worked on some really hard problems in my life. The walks are the hardest problem I've ever worked on, and it's not even close, and it gets harder every time. I mean, I learn a lot, but I also come into new challenges because imagine that you're adding like 10 to 15 new people to a group chat that's really tight knit every week. That's really hard to like integrate people into this really established culture and then really rely and trust that you've embodied your values so clearly that the people who come often will help you embody those values and bring people in. So I'm going in a lot of different directions here, but I would say like I could go on your question on how does curiosity come into play for like an hour. So I'm just going to cut myself off right now because seriously, in every part of it, from the design to how I think about bringing people together, how to create connection and belonging in people, like every single part of it requires curiosity that started with myself and now extends outward.
Awesome. Good, Mark. Why community?
I like it. It's fun. I mean, I don't know if you figured this out yet. Maybe not through me, but I think it's both safe to say that we're extroverts a little bit.
No.
This is what extroverts do. They like to talk to people. They get energized by it. Maybe it's not for you. It's not your thing. You're an introvert. Fine. But for people like us, that spark of seeing somebody's eyes light up when we're sharing ideas or we're having a conversation or we're talking about something that is so esoteric, it's way beyond small talk. It's getting really deep into the sub-layers of like psyches and things of somebody you just met 5 minutes ago on a walk. There's something very magical about it. So everything I do is sincerely and deeply selfish. And I don't make any secret about it. I love meeting people and I really do enjoy it.
Let's double click on that. Selfish. We just had this conversation right now. It is selfish. At the same time, there's a selfless aspect of it as well.
Sure.
How do you balance, like, you can go ahead describing the selfless part of this entire process for you, the connections you make for someone else, what that leads to for you personally. But how do you balance, I think for me, for example, it's very hard to put my own intent always in a situation and then go forward with that because I know there's some selfish reason for why I'm doing that. How do you balance the selfish and the selfless?
It's sales. In sales, you tell people what they're buying. And with me, I always say, look, I'm doing this because I enjoy it and I get pleasure out of it. I call it psychological profit. I learned that from a mentor of mine many years ago. There's no money in what we do. There's no profit directly. You're not going to ever make a living on connecting people. There's ways to do that. You can call them brokers, you can call them connectors, but there's really not a lot of money in the connections. So the money for me is subsidized by my employer, my day job, so that I can go do this. This is my fun thing. Like, to me, this is both work and pleasure. There's no daylight between the two. And not to get too far ahead, but that's why I enjoy South by so much, because it's basically a week's worth of that concentrated into just the most magical time you can imagine, meeting people who you want to meet. That's the difference. The people who show up to the walk are intentional. They care about, they may have heard about it from a friend, they might show up, they might come because somebody made them come, which I did recently. I sent a friend of mine to your walk.
I met her.
She's lovely. I love her today.
She said, Mark sent me.
I sent you because
Yes.
unfortunately I couldn't be there. I was in Houston this weekend and I really hate missing it. But the reason I do it, the reason it's selfish to me is because frankly there's just a pure joy in it. It really is.
Something that you've talked about before is in your 20s, one of the biggest fears that you had was flaking on people.
Or being considered a flake.
Being considered a flake. How have you overcome that fear? Where did that fear come from, first of all, but how did you overcome that fear?
Well, so in my world, word is bond, right? If you say something, you got to do it. If you talk to somebody, you got to follow up. If somebody sends you an email, hey Mark, you said you were going to connect with so-and-so, Dennis has been through this many times, you have to do it. It's just, that's your reputation. In my early years, I was running around meeting everybody, talking to everybody, taking everybody's business card, passing on this, oh, you're a hairdresser, great, you're a mortgage broker, let's connect on LinkedIn. It was silly. I was running up the numbers for no reason. I learned a few years ago that I'd much rather be intentional about who I connect with and why I connect with them and what value I can bring to them. So it's not about numbers to me. It's really about the mutual ability to help each other. If I can't help you, well, I feel terrible about it. but I don't want you to waste time talking to you if I'm not able to help you. And if you can't help me, well, that might not be a transactional thing. It might be a relationship you have. I don't look at things in transactions. I look at them as long-term relationships. So I don't know if that answered your question, but it's certainly how I feel.
What about you? Selfish versus selfless?
Can I make an observation?
You certainly may.
I love how honest you are about your intentions. It was really refreshing to hear you say that, because just to give everybody insight into this, I've seen Marc many times on my walks and we've never had a conversation, never one-on-one, which is really funny. So I actually had no idea what your intentions were. And hearing that, I received that very well, and I just wanted you to know that.
Oh, good.
Because I love how you just said, like, I'm in business development, and this is what I love it, but also there's a purpose here. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think intentions are everything, no matter what it is, whether it's you as a person, it's why you're showing up to something, it's why you're hosting. Like, the why creates trust. Like, if you say you're doing something for a reason and your actions are incongruent, you lose people instantly. So for me to hear that from you makes me trust you a lot, because you're saying like a potentially taboo, quiet part out loud, which really like commands respect.
Nobody likes salespeople. They don't like to be sold to. They don't like to be pressured. But if you tell them up front, hey, I've got something that you may or may not want, and if you don't, that's not what I lead with. It's not it's not what most great salespeople lead with.
Right.
You lead with, how do I solve your problem, not buy something from me right now.
Right.
And that takes maturity and time, but that's kind of where things go.
Yeah. Which is really interesting. So anyway, I just want to say thank you for that. It was really exciting to hear that. For me, I think like the intersection between selfish and selfless, that's the walks for me. Like, that is it's the perfect combination of like something that I do for myself, and like, what if you are interested in creating a community, what I'd really challenge you to think about is, what is something that you are already doing that you love so much, that feels so authentic to you, and how can you invite other people into that experience? Because that's where you'll find something like I found at the walks, which is a true intersection between selfish and selfless. But I think a lot of people, like builders or founders, think I've got to create something. I've got to go 0 to 1. I've got to put something into the world that doesn't exist. I'd actually think about it in a different way. I think about it in what can you do? How can you extend outwards what you're already doing? Like, get really curious about yourself and say, like, what do I do every day, and what parts of that day do I love the most? Like, what is the thing that lights me up more than anything in the world? And how do I extend that experience outward and invite people to it? That's what the walks are for me, and that's why I have endless energy for them. So Marc came to me a couple of weeks ago. He's come to me multiple times. I really avoid talking about monetization. This is an actual fear of mine. Like, I'm really working on this.
I only agreed to this so on stage and recorded I can actually talk about this.
That's amazing. I know, that's why I brought it up, because I was like, oh, when's this going to happen?
It's coming. She knows
So,
it's smart.
yeah. So why I'm bringing this up is because going back to what I just observed about Marc, around me really trusting him, because he just says outright, like, I'm into business development and I love community, but I bring people together because we're selling stuff and it's business development and I want to help my employers and my clients, right? I think on the flip side to that, people have come to me and they're like, what are you doing? Like, what is the point of this? Like, is there a deeper, like ulterior motive to this that like you're just not saying? And just as I trusted you because you say it out loud, people have questioned me because I don't say that I want to sell anyone. Like, for the 71 weeks and walks that I've hosted, they've all been free. They will never be charged. I feel really, really strongly about that, because my why and like what I want to do and what I want to take to other cities is essentially a weekly third space that I believe doesn't exist anymore. It's what church used to be. It's what the bowling alley used to be. But it does not exist in the way that it used to, and it needs to. It is the fabric of society to bring together people with shared values and have them in a space for no ulterior motive, for no money, for no charge, just to connect and feel those amazing, rich human experiences and feelings of belonging. That's why I do what I do, genuinely. But as we've talked about many times, if I want to actually accomplish that and scale what I've built to other cities because I believe in it so strongly, I can't do it for no money. I'm crippled by the day job that I have to keep in order to keep me alive and sustain. So I'm up against this really interesting problem where, like, if I was a billionaire, I would be able to scale my walks with my resources for free and keep them free, and I'd not ever charge anything at all. But I'm not a billionaire, and I have to think about this differently. And so that's why Mark, weeks ago when he first started coming and he experienced the walks, was like, I want to talk to you about how to make money. And I
Not
really...
for me, but here's why.
I would love to, yeah.
Here's why.
Tell me.
For those who've been to the walks once, twice, 10 times, you've been half the walks, there's something very magical about them and very special about them. And it's all due to you and your personality. I knew that the moment I met you. I knew that the minute I heard you on the podcast, Austin X podcast a few weeks ago. And that's a very special quality and a special trait. And the fear that I have, and it's an out loud fear. It's not that you're ever going to get corrupted or get sponsors or something like that. It's not that you ever charge for it. Mm-hmm. It's that you're going to burn out. Mm. And you're going to burn out because if you keep doing this work forever and ever and ever, which I've certainly done for 15, 16 years now, it becomes a drag. And I don't want it to ever become a drag for you because the whole magic of going is watching you do your intro. It's true. It's like watching a little like manic pixie girl, and it's just fun. And you're fun. And you twirl around, and like you can't. The problem is you can't bottle yourself up and sing to every other city. And the other problem is you can't clone yourself with other people because they will never be Elle. That's the issue.
I have an interjection on that one. I think you have been able to scale the walks beyond your name.
Yes.
That you have done already, I think. I think more people that I talk to they know about the walks, they don't know about you.
Of course.
So there's something there that you've done which is beyond just your personality per se, I think. What is that? Like, what is that? Also, a follow-up question on that is, what is the difference between an audience and a community? Like, you guys are talking about monetization. What is the difference there? How do you grow each of those separately? Are they the same? Are they not?
Oh, man.
A lot of questions, I think, but yeah.
So one thing I'll challenge you. Well, first of all, thank you for all those compliments. That was wonderful.
Observations.
That was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone else. That's fantastic. I mean, I'll take it.
You're good.
Thank you. I'll challenge one thing you said about not being able to bottle the energy up and bring it to other places because I have in San Francisco, and it's going very, very well. And I would say, like, how
did you train the host? Whoever that person is.
Very thoughtfully. Okay. And like, I onboarded them into a process so that this is the real vision. You know how there's Disney World and Disneyland, and you could go to Magic Kingdom and have the same exact experience? That's what I want to create with the walks in every city. So that if you're traveling to LA or SF or Atlanta or Austin, you could go on a walk Saturday 8 in the morning and have the same predictable experience. Like, that's what I'm creating. And I've learned how to do that in SF. And I know that it's working because I've had multiple cross-city attendees at this point. I think almost 10 now who have been on the Austin walk and SF's walk. And I go to them every time and I'm like, how is the experience? How is it similar? How is it different? I'm very voracious about collecting feedback. Like, I would say this is why the walks are successful, is because I have no ego about if somebody likes something, if they don't like something. I ask really weird questions. I like to have pattern disrupts and say things that are taboo and then see what someone will admit to me. Like, I really have no ego about feedback, and that's what I've created into the experience. And so when I ask, hey, how was Austin versus SF? They'll say, it was the same. So I've done it. And like, why I have taken my time with it is because I wanted to see, like, have I actually done it? And we're 16 in now, and I have. And so I just wanted to give you that intel because maybe you didn't have that.
Thank you.
But as far as scaling to other cities, I'll give you guys some insider knowledge. I have this, as Mark knows, and most people who've been on the walks know, they're mostly word of mouth. I don't have them on any event platforms, so not on Eventbrite or Meetup or anywhere, because the person who comes and the shared values are very, very important to me. So I'm not optimizing for the number of people at all. It is truly the quality of the experience. So with that, you have a situation where people will come because they're brought in by other people, but you have this container that's so specific that you can transfer it, like that the brand recognition, like to one of your other questions, is so strong because the values are so strong, because the values haven't leaked, basically. Like the reason why people know, like, oh, if you are someone who is a regular at the BoardWalks, I know the kind of person you're going to be. Like, I know that any of Adele, that's my host in SF's regulars, I would be friends with, because we've built an experience with such clear values that if you feel so compelled to show up to an event, 5 to 10 times, like, that's my people. So what you're creating there is like a trust network in a bunch of different cities where I can come to this experience and have like a shortcut to genuine connection because I know the exact kind of person who feels drawn to this thing.
Yeah.
So that's just, I wanted to address some of your questions because you gave us a lot to work with.
Yeah.
I just sorry.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
I don't know if that answered the question, how you build an audience versus a community. So
what's the difference between an audience and a community?
Take it away.
I've had some time to think about it. Audience is one-to-many, community is peer-to-peer. That's basically how I look at it. An audience, you are right now the audience for this talk, but the minute we get up and the talk is done, we all clap, everything's great, we're a community. We're talking to each other, we're sharing ideals, we're sharing data, we're sharing knowledge, we're sharing connections. A community to me is a group of people that share values or aspirations. They are bound together for some reason, whether it's an age bracket, whether it's geographic location. In this case, we're all bound by intention. And so to me, this is the community around that. But an audience to me is what an audience is what influencers build. They build a one-to-many. They want people to know them, do something they say, buy whatever they're selling, whatever that might be. That's top-down. This is all very flat, very peer-to-peer.
So you're saying audience is person, individual-driven versus communities?
I think I'll agree with that. Yes.
Okay. What do you say to that?
I would agree. I would say I kind of think about it in terms of like an audience is a bulletin board and a community is a chat.
That's even better. I'll take that.
Yeah, because I think that it's really interesting. I've seen this fascinating, desperate feeling swing among podcasters and creators and influencers who realize they have an audience when they want to have a community.
Yeah.
That's a very hard transition to make when your intentions aren't in it. And I don't know if you agree with this.
100%.
People come to me a lot, like influencers and people who have built audiences, and they try to get my advice on like how do we pivot? How do I make money off these people? Is what they want to know.
What I hear there is their selfish to selfless ratio is much higher.
Absolutely, because it started selfish.
Yeah.
See, this is the key. Right. Is when it starts selfish, it's very hard to change that frame of reference. So you'll see people who have a podcast that's been going on for a very, very long time. They have millions of dedicated listeners, and those people have an expectation of like, I have a podcast, you listen to it, that's what we do here. When you then try to introduce new elements to that and it's not coming from the right place, like if you don't really sit with yourself when you have an audience and say, what do I want? Like, what is the experience I want to create? How do I want to make people feel? Like truly, what predominant emotions do I want people to feel in my community experience? If you're not asking these questions and answering them really authentically, you will burn and churn. I cannot tell you, and you've probably seen this, the amount of times, and look no further than Web3 crypto boom that just happened a year, 2 years ago, when a bunch of people were like, oh, wait, people equals dollar signs,
Yeah.
and community equals commodity. So if I can just flood all of these people into this experience and get them to commit with their money, we can provide them this thing, and this is the transaction, this is the value we're doing. But what I found over and over and over again is that they burn out because it was not coming from a selfless place, it was coming from a selfish place. So what you do there, you get people in with this big bill of goods, and then you don't deliver on it, and you totally ruin your reputation. You totally can the trust that it required to get people in the door. So I wish more people would be really, really thoughtful on if I have an audience, if I have a bulletin board, if I want to make it a chat, do I really want to make it a chat? Do I have the longevity and sustainability in me to make that a chat? Not everybody does.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you agree?
100%. I believe that in all things, consistency counts.
Mm-hmm.
So if you start something, you should be able to finish it. And has anybody ever heard the term pod fading?
Mm.
Pod fading, when podcasts first came out, I was heavily involved with podcasts, like the industry part of it. And there was a term that came up called pod fading. And they basically found that somebody who wanted to start a podcast usually faded out. They kind of petered out by episode 6 or 7. Just stop. How many podcasts you listen to, waiting for episode 3, it never shows up.
Mm-hmm.
It happens all the time. That happens with newsletters, happens with any kind of content.
Yeah.
Somebody comes out really strong on Twitter, like Elle, and then, not her of course, but then they just kind of disappear. They go away. Ebbs and flows of everything, but
Yes.
You have to be very intentional, once again, about being consistent. 71 weeks in a row is proven consistency. That's no joke.
Thank you.
That is not easy. I do something very, very
Texas
easy.
Square.
I do a newsletter once a week.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for over 8 years now.
Every week?
Every week.
I haven't missed a week by a minute in 8 years.
Holy crap, that's incredible.
So I just published issue, I want to say 471 or 472.
Wow.
But here's how I know that. It was a challenge to me.
Mm.
When I first sent it out in 2016, in the very first email address, I put 001, knowing that if I didn't do that, I would never send another email out. I had to get to 002 to prove to myself. And here I am in the late 400s because I have to be consistent. The streak has to continue.
But did you always have that accountability built in you?
Never. No, I have the worst accountability. That's the whole thing we're talking about, being a flake. I was very afraid of becoming somebody that just seemed very flighty or just jumping around and not having a real substance. And so I started becoming an expert. Not an expert, believe me. But my expertise was something very simple. I would gather all of the headlines for all the startup news that were going on in Texas and send it out once a week. It really isn't that hard.
It's just literally links of all the events happening. If you see the
It's time consuming and it's a headache and it's a pain in the ass, but
It takes a while to read it.
it does. It takes a while to write it, believe me.
But it's actually full of a lot of value.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I appreciate that, and that consistency has become part of my brand.
Yeah.
I can't not do it anymore. I want to quit every week. Every single week I
Really?
sit down. Every week I want to say, what am I doing this for?
But you ask yourself that every
Every
week?
single week. I feel like in my mind, I put it together on Saturday mornings, but I've actually changed it because I want to do the walks.
Oh.
I feel like I'm wrestling a bear every week. Like I wake up on Saturday mornings, I got to go wrestle the bear. And the bear has just got claws out and ready to snarl, and I have to fight the bear. That's my bear. This stupid newsletter. But
So why do you keep doing it?
I don't know how to quit. I
Wait,
don't.
really?
Yeah.
Wait,
What if I
say
just
more.
stopped?
What if you just stopped?
The world would not stop spinning. I know that,
Uh-huh.
but I feel like it would be part of my identity going.
And probably
How
no
do
one.
you stop doing this event? You can't.
Well, you know what's really funny is as I was listening to you speak, like the walks are the opposite of wrestling a bear. Like I have never one time, even on, because like you imagine you do something every week, and this, if you really want to grow as a human being, do something on a weekly basis that requires bringing more than one other person together. Because I'll tell you, me having to show up every single week, no matter what went on in my life, what emotional state I'm in, and there's real hard weeks, there's like real bad news I've gotten right before the event, before I've taken red eyes in to make it at 8 in the morning multiple times. I've not always been in a good state when I'm hosting, but I know I've got to do it, and I really want to do it. Like, I have never woken up and thought, oh, not this shit again. Never one time. So it's like, it's the opposite of a bear for me. It's like, it's the thing that like keeps me going.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no matter, like, I mean, I'll tell you this, like, earlier this year, I had a really, really hard, like something, I don't want to say too much on this, but like something really, really, really devastating happened in my life. And I truly believe that like hosting the walks on a weekly basis is what got me through that healing period. Because if I didn't have a weekly event, a weekly commitment to host, I would have withdrawn significantly from like everybody. Because that's how I grieve, is to disappear. And when you have a weekly commitment, you cannot disappear. So like I'm literally obsessed with the walks because I feel that they've saved my life multiple times by nature of me just waking up and having to do it.
Yeah. I know we're over time, but one last question.
Oh, are we over time?
We've been like over 40 minutes, but we've been talking. I love
I thought
it.
it just started.
I'm a talker.
Oh my gosh.
I thought it just started.
I
We
know.
just got it.
That's what I felt like.
That's crazy.
If anybody has to leave, by all means.
Oh
we
yeah,
can.
please.
But if you want to continue, I'll stay until the lights turn off.
Yeah, no, I mean, one question that speaking of obsession, why are you obsessed with Paris in the 20s?
This is a good question.
How does that relate to Austin also?
Yes.
Just kind of touch on that.
Okay. Who has lived in Austin for over a year? Can you raise your hand? Okay, over 5 years? Okay, great. We got a good mix in here. So I feel, and anybody who's been here for a while or even over a year, Austin has changed so significantly in the time that I've been here. And I have seen, this is the part I'm most excited about, this renaissance in intellectualism and the excitement and desire for different thinkers of different industries to get together for creative collisions. And that's very much how I see the walks. The walks are, 50 to 60 people from all industries, ages, backgrounds. The youngest person is a 6-month-old baby who comes regularly. The oldest is over 75. And these are people who come regularly. They're from all different industries and backgrounds, all different races, all different genders. And we all get into the same space. And everyone brings a topic they want to discuss, and you never know what you're going to talk about. You might talk about that thing, or you might talk about something you did not expect that could literally change your life, which happens to me every week, it feels like. And that's why I love Paris in the 20s, because I feel like I'm contributing actively to making Austin like Paris in the 20s, which was this cafe culture of you just walk up into this random place and have this amazing serendipitous moment that could change your life because you were present and open. And that's what I'm helping create. So that's why I'm obsessed with that idea, because I really feel like that is what's going to take the city to the next level and everyone in it to the next level.
You said presence plus openness equals luck.
I did.
That's an interesting one.
I'd like to add to that real quick, if I
Yeah.
may. There was a bit of this before. So I can look around the room and I see a lot of you younger guys out there, younger women. In the beginning of the social media craze, 2006, 2007, the online space, specifically Twitter, at the time Facebook in some respects, was the digital water cooler. And as a new platform, it had new paradigms and new ways of thinking and new ways of communication. We had been blogging for a while. We've been podcasting for a little while. But we hadn't really been doing this short-form conversation with people you meet. And I got very lucky. I was the second person in the Houston area on Twitter. The only reason I know I'm number 2, I know this is a fact. The only reason I know I was number 2 is because my very good friend said, "Hey, Mark, get on this thing. Type in 40404 and text a name and all. So get on this thing called Twitter." I said, "Isn't this like the blogger guys from Odeo and all this sort of like technology stuff that I do about?" He's like, "Yeah, but just get on it." And I happened to be here for South by the year that it blew up in 2007, and it was magical. You can't put it into words how you meet people in real life that you only knew their handle, and you only knew how they express themselves in 140 characters, not on your computer, on text. Literally, it was SMS texting. I'll never forget this. I think I told you the story.
Yeah.
First year, South by Southwest, Twitter happens. We're meeting all these people. We're connecting. We're having this just epiphany of just incredibly high level. I know you, you know me. We're friends for life, but I've never met you in real life kind of situation.
Yeah.
At the time, this is how old I am. A text would be charged 10 cents a piece. All right, you can't imagine that now. It's not even on your radar now. I came home a week after South by. I got a bill for $600.
Oh, dear.
and it was actually the best $600 bill I've ever spent. I hated doing it, of course, but I realized I'd sent thousands of texts and got thousands back because you get charged to receive them too. Forget sending.
Oh, Lord.
So I was following a couple, 300, 400 people. They're all sending texts. We're all in the same room. We're all texting each other from across the way. And all of a sudden, boom, got a bill. But that's the point. That's what, to me, the walks are. And the walks are in any community, not audience, in any community. There's always the early adopters. There's always the late adopters.
Yeah.
That early adopter into like that very slight transition into, okay, here are the core people that are doing this. Now it's starting to expand just a little bit, but not enough to get past the 150 Dunbar number so nobody knows anybody's name.
Yeah.
It's still a tribe.
Yeah.
It's a growing tribe.
Yeah.
It's on the rise. It's the hockey stick going up.
Yeah.
And I hate to say this, and this is what my biggest fear is. This is what I keep talking about for you. My biggest fear is you hit a plateau.
In what?
In that the energy level kind of just,
Never.
well, same.
It can happen.
I believe you, and I want to trust you, and I want to make sure you have the resources and the serious money to pay for this so that it doesn't happen. That's my only thing.
You want to know why I don't think it can happen?
Tell me.
Because you alluded to this. It goes beyond me. Because I've done this for 71 weeks.
Plus 16.
Plus 16 SF. And it's people in this room like John, like Ryan, like Tamarin, like people who come regularly, who have come over. I mean, all of them have been over 30, 40 times easy at this point of the 71. They hold it down for me just as much as I hold it down. And like, that is why it works. Because
They're a mirror of you.
Yes,
They're a mirror of you.
because we've had this experience together so many times, and they know what the energy is. And so I'm not the only one responsible for creating it. Like, I'm there, but it could go on without me, and it does, and it has. I'll tell you a story about how one day my alarm did not go off. Just one time in the whole 71. And I did not show up to my own event. And it went on without me. Because everyone had seen it happen so many times that they all were at the coffee shop. They walked across the street to the parking lot. One of my friends, Talia, got in the middle of the circle and did the speech that I give, that Mark alluded to, with no script, because I was asleep. I was not conscious. I was not like, hey, it's what you say. Like, she just from memory went for it. And everyone knew exactly the route, because all of these things, like, that's why I've designed it this way, so that it goes beyond me. And I truly feel like it's the amount of time that I've taken to build it to that, which a lot of people I don't think are willing to do.
I agree with that.
Which is why I think in most situations what you would be saying is very accurate. I think that in any other environment, if someone were to create an experience and be like, oh, like, the energy's going to stay the same, it'd be like, okay, yeah, let's see. But they've probably only done 5 or 10. I've done 71 of these. Right? That's a shitload of data.
And I love that. And I'm not arguing or challenging you in any way.
Oh, it excites me to talk about this.
I just feel that this kind of energy is what I'm there for. I'm not there to walk. I can walk anywhere, right? I'm not there to hang out with a bunch of mostly tech bros. I can do that pretty much anywhere.
They're special.
I do it because of the passion and energy you exude. It comes out of every pore.
Oh, thank you.
And that, to me, that's the juice. That's why I attend. Now, I've met some pretty interesting people. I'm sitting in front of an audience right now because of a walk I did and somebody I met. So things do move forward. In any intentional community, anything, whether you're a cult or whether you're a religion or whether you're a business, there has to be a transition of not necessarily power and not necessarily control, but influence. And you have to enable and empower people that you know and trust to allow that to happen. A quick story. I do 3 events regularly a month here in Austin. Two of them are tech related. One is consumer packaged goods related. It's a fairly large event, anywhere from 80 to 100 people. Dennis comes. I've seen Dave there a few times. Slim certainly shows up when he can. The best thing I did, I was actually out of town 1 week actually it was exactly this time last year, and it went off without a hitch. It happened exactly what was supposed to happen. I think the one thing that was missing was, and I'm a big stickler for this, I always bring name tags to any event that I do. And so I don't think they had name tags there at that particular event, but other than that, it went smooth sailing. And the consistency counts.
So what I hear is like a mixture. The ingredients are some sort of value, some intention that's really strongly rooted, plus the design has habits in it. Like there's a habit kind of that is built into the design that goes beyond yourself, because that's a habit that anyone else can also replicate.
It's a structure. So like I'll give you like an inside view in how I built the experience, because what's funny about it is that it looks really simple and organic from the outside. Like it's very simply packaged. It's a 5-mile walk where people have, it's 5 miles. It's a long walk. It's about like 2.5 hours for energizing conversation. So what that means is people will come with a topic that they want to discuss, and that's a part of the process. But though that sounds very simple, there's things that I have like obsessively thought about and experimented with that make it work. And a few of those things are, number one, the price of admission Saturday, 8 a.m. to really make sure the people who wake up at 6, 7 a.m. and say, I've got to go to this walk, really want to be there, right? And I don't invite anyone, which I was talking to somebody, Millet back there, I was talking to him about this, so critical. Like, I have no ego about the number of people who come. That's why I don't invite anyone, because I believe that when you invite someone as a host, a lot of people will show up out of obligation to not disappoint you, and not because they want to be there.
Yeah.
So I flip that on its head, because I'm very comfortable with showing up and no one being there but me. If I ever were to show up on a Saturday and literally no one came, I'd go on the walk by myself. That's why I gave that advice, to build as an extension of something you're already doing. Because even if no one ever came, I would still go on that 5-mile walk by myself.
I believe you would.
I really would, and I do, like every day. So that's one part, that intentionality baked in. The format of the walk is also what I package and onboard and train the hosts in other cities to know how to do. So that I kind of want to live in a world where like there's one of these walks in every single city, so that I can travel to every little city and like be like a guest host. Like that's really exciting to me. Like almost just like show up in LA and be like, Elle's here and she's gonna run the walk, and like it's the same everywhere. So it's like that format consistency is something I like obsessively think about, because yes, it is very simple, but it goes off the same exact way no matter where you are. So I don't know, that's a weird thing though, because I really care about scaling this to everywhere, like all over the world. That's what I care about. So maybe that's not like to be said for every event, but I do think the consistency in format, even if you just stay in one city, is so massively helpful for anybody who comes in when you can't make it. Because that's what I found.
Agreed.
So it helps with scale and for longevity, because people can step in when you can't do it.
Okay, that's fascinating. I'm going to open this up to any questions that you guys have. Any
Or challenges.
Like we can debate.
I'd be really curious, Elle, to hear about how you're allowing for the walk culture to evolve while also still maintaining a culture that you believe in, and how you kind of negotiate what your vision for the walk is with the community's vision for the walk.
Ooh, good question, John. I would say my vision that I feel very, very strongly about is that everyone who joins has these things in common: curiosity, kindness, open-mindedness, and love, an absolute love, obsession, if you will, with meaningful conversations. Those are the pillars. That's what that event, the walk, is designed to magnetize and designed to deliver. And I don't promise anything but that. And I'm very careful about my words. So you may have seen me write about this. I have never said, come to the walks to find your people, come to the walks to find friends. I can't deliver on that, so I will not say it. what I will say is that you will come to this event, you will walk 5 miles, and you will have energizing conversations, because I know you will have at least one, and I know you will walk 5 miles. So I promise what I can deliver, and that's very important to me. So that is my vision, right? Keeping that culture every single week and bringing that to as many cities as I possibly can in my lifetime. That's what I care about. Now, the evolution of the culture actually comes in taking it outside of the walk. So the walk itself, the culture itself, is ironclad. I do not intend to change that, because the values, like I had said in the beginning, are everything to me. I'm not activity-based in my community. It's values-based. The values will never change, and they're non-negotiable. And if somebody comes and says, I want it to be this value or that value, I do not care. If you don't align with the values of this community, find another community. I feel very strongly about that. I'm not building for everyone. I'm building for someone who hears what I just said and is like, that's me. Like, I'm only building for those people. And I don't intend to capitulate on my vision, because that's like, I'm building for myself. Like, that's the selfish part. Like, I don't want people who don't want meaningful conversations in my community, because that breaks the whole magic. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
So that's how I see the creation and cultivation of the culture. Now, the evolution of it is what I'm thinking about now. So this is like what Mark and I will eventually, when he tracks me down and we talk about monetization.
Can you talk about that? Like, I think I know a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the evolution of the community for me is in what lies beyond the walks. So the walks are unchanged, they will be fixed. They are what they are. But I'm very, very curious and excited about expanding the experience for the community. So instead of it just being the walks, which will never go away, they'll always be every week, what would it be like to have other regular events?
Like a salon.
Yeah, like a salon, which would make total sense, because that's exactly what the people in the community love to do. So where my mind is right now, and that's why actually the walks are called the BoardWalks, the community is called the board, because everyone is a member of the board. And to extend that idea outward, I have a host of ideas of what regular board meetings or board retreats will look like, but I have to feel really, really confident about the experience design on each of those fronts before I launch them. So to answer your question, the evolution of the community is not in what it stands for or its values, but how it gathers and how much more it gathers than on the walks today. What do you think about that?
I love it. I love it. I can see retreats. I can see a resort. I can see this
resort?
Yeah. like a weekend or a getaway or something like that.
Yes.
Sure. So,
I am actually curious, Mark, how you would monetize the walks if you were in charge.
Yeah, what would you
And where that money would go to make it more sustainable.
so I'm on the spot. But it's It's real simple. And I'm going to tell you out loud in front of all these people.
Tell me. Right?
You have built not just an audience, but a community. We figured that out. People are here for that. You have the intention. You know you can actually figure out who shows up. You can actually find out the profile and the type of people you're bringing. To me, you don't sell advertisers. You sell sponsors. I think you get this thing sponsored. Anybody that wants to be part of a community, anybody that wants to have, you'll vet them. It's not going to be like the drug companies. You're not.
It makes me twitch.
I understand. Well,
Yeah.
who do you work for, right? And that's their job. It's just the reality. That's the whole thing. You know,
Yeah.
Google, our friend Google, makes $2.5 billion a quarter
Yeah.
on selling ads. So I'm not saying ads,
Yeah.
but there are certain people that you'll want to allow into this community with good intention, authenticity, that would pay. And what would they pay for? They're not paying for the walk. They're not paying for the coffee. There's no payment. They pay you to manage it so you can go travel. That's what it is. They pay you a managing director salary to go be the executive director of the BoardWalks International.
The board of the BoardWalks.
Yeah.
The chairwoman.
Right.
That's what I intend to call myself.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
All right.
Chairwoman of the board.
Just sitting while everyone's walking.
I could think of tons of professional services businesses that want to like just be part of the community. And instead of writing a check to like the food bank, maybe they get involved with this.
Yeah.
Any single entity, any company, any business that actually is a current donor to either the Long Center or to the the theater, the Stateside Theater, anybody who wants to get community engaged has money for you. Because this is community engagement that's very hard. So that's my answer.
That's a pretty good answer.
That's a good one.
I've been thinking about it for a while.
You've been thinking about it for a while?
Yeah.
Yes, that's why I'm trying to get a hold of you.
That's funny.
Yes,
Yeah,
because
man.
you need someone, not individuals. You will never charge a penny for this. It wouldn't work.
Yeah, I know I don't want to.
It would. It's just everybody would feel dirty. Okay, even if it's like,
Yeah.
even if it's like 2 cans of donation, like it's just the transaction
Yeah.
of showing up. This has to be as
You
open as
bring
possible.
your presence. Like the presence is the gift, truly.
So to me, the only way to do it, in my mind, sustainably, is to get companies that want to be involved with this community that sign ironclad. You're not going to sell all the same stuff. So Elle, nobody said this. Elle said you can't sell your business or yourself for a potential mate. That's a pretty good rule, I think.
Thank
And I'm
you.
sure that's a rule that's been challenged, and I imagine there's no rule in the history of man that happened because everybody was doing the right thing. Somebody did the wrong thing, which is why you need a rule.
Uh-huh. That's part of the speech that Mark was talking about where I twirl around like Willy Wonka. It's like 4 minutes long and I like line out these very specific rules. Some of them are like really easy to understand, hard rules like don't sell, promote, or speed date. And then others are like what I like to call soft rules. These are really fun to enforce on. So one of them is like be curious. I enforce on that. Like no one sees this as the invisible part of the walk, but like I have at least one, but usually more, feedback conversation with people who come every walk. And they don't know that I'm doing it with them. That's the best part. Because the way I approach it is really based in curiosity and question asking. But what we'll arrive at is that either the values aren't aligned, like the person is coming with a misaligned energy, or I'm able to kind of bring something to their awareness on how they're being received by other people. And that's actually the part that really gets me excited. That's the part of community management that's really hard. It's this forced accountability to say, I'm in the same space every week and it's open. Anyone can come. And there may be people who don't align with the values who keep showing up. What do you do? I handle that. No one knows, but I'm the one out there.
I've seen one of those conversations, yeah.
He watched one of them. They happen every week.
They're not fun. I don't do it every week, but every once in a while at one of my events, it's open to anybody. Anybody can come. I do advertise and I promote. I want as many people there. Basically, I pay for a coffee bar tab and people show up. But it's fun.
Nice.
Great. But here's the issue. The issue is I get 2 unwanted characters. And those 2 unwanted characters typically have the exact same profile. They are, in all respects, older, so middle-aged to late career, middle-aged men, mostly white men. And they are transaction oriented. And the 2 categories of businesses that they come from are invariably HR, because they want to hire somebody,
Financial planning.
financial planning. Did I tell you that?
No.
It's true. Financial planners. Financial planners. Is anybody a financial
I thought you were
planner?
going to say real estate.
No. Real estate, they
That's
know
the
better.
third. That's the third.
That technically is true. That's correct.
Yeah.
Financial planners are the worst of the worst because somewhere, someday,
Both the ones of financial.
We love you.
No.
Yeah.
a million years ago, in the 1940s or 30s, whatever it was, somebody once said to a financial planner, hey, just meet
up.
people
Yeah.
and shake as many hands as possible.
Yeah.
And that blueprint has been true for financial planners since the beginning of time. And it drives me crazy because it doesn't work. It's the same person that once said to a realtor, you know what? You probably should put your picture on the front on your business card. Does any other business in the entire world put your picture on a business card except for real estate brokers, residential real estate brokers? No, it's just a thing. Why do all restaurants' websites have PDF menus? Like somebody, I think there's a department of this is how it's going to be, and that's what happened. But financial planners were mistrained on how to sell. They think that if they're just in front of people, they'll be happy to give them the keys to their bank account and just manage my wealth. They're the hardest people to break because they are not welcome. In that they're human beings and great, I love to talk to them, But the moment they get into, oh, what do you do? Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
And just dive right into it. And it's a personality thing. But it's been my experience. I can't say it's true across the board. It's been my experience 100% of the time.
Wow. You've never been able to reform one of them?
No, they always just don't show up.
Really?
They would prefer to do their thing with other audiences and like learn from the community. It's happened more than a few times over the years.
That's really interesting. So why I find this really fascinating is that in the rules that I share at the beginning of every walk, and the same rules in the same exact way in delivery are shared in San Francisco as well, the rules create grounds for these feedback conversations, and that's what keeps the community really strong. Because if I were to say all of these rules and then not enforce on them, we'd probably have like, okay, it's a good chance that everyone who's coming hears the rules, agrees to the rules, lives by the rules, right? But these are also people, majority of whom have come many, many times and understand the energy, the intention, the culture. But when you have a new person coming into this experience, hearing the rules, they don't know me. They don't know how serious I am about this. They know that I'm serious enough to stand in the middle of a giant circle and talk for 4 minutes on this, so I convey my seriousness in my actions. But you'll have people who test the boundaries because they don't know, like, oh, how serious is she about saying no selling, promoting, or dating, or let's see if you can float around to at least 5 people on a walk. Let's take a personal growth challenge of asking better questions or speaking up more than you usually do or becoming a better listener. That's one of the rules. Or being curious about other people, but also about yourself, right? These are soft rules. And when people hear me say these things, it's like, oh, okay, food for thought. But if they're coming for the first time, they don't know if I'm actually going to come and talk to them if they're going against one of these rules, right? It's just really interesting because in this example, do you set rules for your events? Or is it more just like a social expectation?
Social expectation.
See, that's what's so interesting to me, because why I have rules is for what you're saying. Like, I have rules because if a financial planner or a real estate broker or what was the third category?
That's it.
HR.
Oh, HR. If any of these 3 categories
You just
came,
described me.
I know.
Oh, are you all 3? You're the jackpot. Oh my gosh, that's great.
You're in just because you're the jackpot.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Actually, in all honesty, Dave's one of the best business guys I've ever met. He's a good friend of mine. He's here because, how'd you hear about this? Through.
So I think I saw you on LinkedIn, and
Okay.
I always come to all your things.
So I appreciate it. So
that's
it's a
great.
good friend, right? Not an audience member, community member.
Yeah.
Dave knows these rules. Dave is
Yeah,
100% professional. I can tell you there are people like us who are just hardcore sharks out there looking for business that can pretend to be nice to people for a while. It's true. It does happen.
Well, what I was saying, the 3 categories, is because if I were to have any of those 3 categories, which I have before, come on the walks, when they hear me say those rules, they capitulate. They change how they show up because they can, in some way, tell that I'm taking this seriously. But then if they falter and they're like, oh, maybe she doesn't really take this seriously, they're going to find out. They're going to find out because I'm going to have a conversation with them because I have no hesitation about having a conversation with people who break the rules because there's a reason I get up there and say them because they must be followed. So it's really interesting because I think really, really like deeply about how so many of these like social taboo moments would be solved if every event in the world had ground rules. I mean, that's a grand vision, but like I truly believe that like those rules, at least for what I'm building, are everything. I mean, there's a reason the structure's so organic, but that happens every time. Like, the people who've been on the walks many times can probably say the speech for me because they've heard it so many times. It's the same thing every single time.
Consistency counts.
Consistency, it counts because Ryan, like if you think about this, you've heard me say this 30, 40 times, right? But someone who's coming for the first time has never heard me say it. So I've got to, like, first of all, you're there, so you're going to hear me say it. So you're going to have it more encoded in your memory. It's already in there real deep, but, like, you're going to have it even more encoded. And then the person who's coming for the first time needs to hear this. They need to understand the social contract that they're buying into. So it's a really interesting mix because I feel like why people don't have rules at events, or I love your perspective on this, why you don't have ground rules at your events. I think why people don't have them is because if there's a consistent element to it, it feels like cringe or awkward or like, oh, people who are coming already know.
People want change. People want to see something new.
Well, people want, oh, that's interesting. I literally swing the opposite. I create the same environment every time.
Yeah.
Because I feel that's what like the brain craves.
Yeah.
In an ever-changing world where you have new stimuli thrown in front of you every single day, I don't think our brains are made to hold that many different experiences. So I try to create something that's super predictable. And I actually think subconsciously that's why people really like the walks, because they know what they're going to get.
That's interesting. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Last
so
question, by the way.
This is kind of in line with what y'all are discussing now, but so pre-pandemic, you and I talked about this a lot, Mark, about how there was like this unofficial theme or motto in Austin. When you're trying to do business in Austin, especially in business services, there was this unofficial theme that you had to be authentic. And it always held true, and nobody really had to speak about it, but you could always tell when people were breaking the rule. But I'm curious if you've seen that change since the pandemic, or since we've been
The Austin ethos, what you just described, and that's how we met. I mean, we spent
exactly
many coffees together and many events together, and various, I was running organizational tech exchange, Dave was working on ACG Next. Like, there's just a lot of overlap. But that's the whole point of Austin. People, I've always said this, I'll be very consistent about this. Everybody's Austin side hustle is helping each other. It's watching each other's success. That really is a thing here. It makes Austin very unique from a business perspective, from a business platform, in that there is not a single person in the city of Austin that's been here for longer than a year that considers himself an Austin resident that wouldn't take your call, coffee, or email within a couple of days. It's just the way we are. And that's growing, and things are shaping up. We've doubled in size in 20 years. And it's probably a third more than we were in 7 years ago. It's wild. But we also have new residents that come in and add energy. And as long as we keep building on that and building those bricks in the wall of like Austin helping each other, I don't think it's going to change. But the only time I've ever had any trouble with anybody in Austin is invariably it's an East Coaster or California who comes in and wants to get to know Austin. He's going to be here for about 20 minutes. They take 15 meetings all in a row at the same coffee shop. It's in. And they're saying the same thing. They're just pitching you. And you look at them and say, nice to meet you. Hope we'll stay in touch. See you later. You never hear from them again. It happens all the time because people think that you can just sort of helicopter into Austin. You can't. You have to live here. And when I say live here, it means show up, just like you all are doing. It means doing things that are a little bit outside your comfort zone. You're here now doing that. It means really caring about the other people, like actually thinking about them and wanting to see them succeed, and not just grabbing whatever resources you can grab. And that's true of both for-profit and nonprofit. A lot of people don't know this. Austin has the highest per capita number of nonprofits in the United States. And I thought about this for a while. Why is that? What is the reason behind that? Well, we're very generous and we like to be nonprofity here. We give to this and we give Tuesday and we amplify Austin all the time. Maybe that's part of it. We're just a bunch of hippy-dippy liberals who like to give. Great. That's not the real answer. It took me a long time to figure this out. And this is what I'm cognizant, not concerned, not scared, cognizant of your deal. Problem with Austin is that we're still in Texas, which means we're really fiercely independent. It means that if you've got the dog walking nonprofit and you've got a cat walking nonprofit, well, you're not going to merge because you guys do so many different things. You've got a red logo, you've got a blue logo. Well, I can't do this. But here's the thing about Austin. You could just move down the road and set up your own shop. We don't have top-down structure here. We don't have
a hierarchy.
I'm sure people know who the mayor is. Fine, it's Kirk Watson, in case anyone knows. But does that matter? Does he have any effect on our personal or business lives at all? Zero. None. In other cities, that's not the same. In other cities, the mayor, and the councilman, the assemblyman, and all these other people, they matter. Austin doesn't have very clear leadership from the top down because we're all doing our own thing and doing pretty well. Like everybody's kind of doing their own thing and making a living, so there's no need for this like top-down thing. And that's why when an event like this pops up, you become an instant leader. You are. Like it or not, you are. You lead an event, you have this group, and you're a leader. But Austin really solves for leaders. We've got lots and lots of leaders in our own little silos.
Yeah.
But even, and I was just having this conversation last week, even the nonprofits are not, there's no king of the nonprofits here. In many cities, United Way, I don't know if anybody grew up in a United Way city. United Way is the city, like it's the board of directors for all nonprofits. I'm sure we have one here in Austin. We've never heard of them. I mean, it's things like that. Austin is still, in a lot of ways, very special from a business perspective.
Yeah.
In that we still like to gather with our friends and talk and have coffee and show up. And I love the coffee culture. It's not a salon culture yet, but it's getting there. I don't drink coffee at all. Zero. Not a drop. I haven't had a drop since 2018. It's medically induced. It's so stupid. It's my fault. But I go to coffees all the time. And every single time I walk into a major coffee shop, a name brand coffee shop, Houndstooth downtown, Swedish Hill on the west side, a few others, I'll know somebody. And more importantly, they'll know me. And even more important than that, they'll actually want to see me. And that's Austin. And it's just the greatest. And I love that vibe here. And I'm sure everybody's touched on this in some way. But keeping that vibe going, that's what's important to me. That's critical to me. To keep that intention of Austin doing business as Austinites, I think that's worth preserving.
I think,
Oh, sorry, I was just going to ask. So, do you see this as a benefit to being here? Like, so what
1,000%.
What I'm hearing is, like, is there a part of you that feels like we're too niched down? Like, I'm hearing you say that there's no clear leader, there's no merging.
I think it's a positive.
You think it's positive?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so you think it's
We're
going to be protected?
self-determined.
Oh, interesting. I took it the opposite.
We're a self-determined organism. We know what we're doing. We don't need somebody from up on high telling us how to do things.
I thought when you were talking about like the red logo and the blue logo, what if we merged, became more powerful, and then we become the United Way? Like, I thought that you were going in
It's
that
the diversity.
direction. Oh, it's actually the opposite.
Diversity. I mean, if everybody's doing something slightly different, it breeds competition. And competition breeds excellence.
Yeah, that's very true.
I mean, it's silly at some level to have literally 6,000 nonprofits in the Austin area.
Yeah, but they're all competing for the same
For
donors.
Well, every nonprofit, including events and resource events.
Yeah.
One of the issues in Austin from a community and event perspective is that we're all competing for the same donor dollars, the same sponsors.
Yeah.
So you got to be really good.
Yeah.
They build their own community.
They have to.
What you described is the opposite of Chicago.
Mm-hmm. It's who you know and who's your dad.
Chicago is top down, alderman, everybody they're
Kiss the
trying
ring.
to control. This is the way to think. I was going to ask you the question. So of the walks, I lived in San Francisco for 20 years, and Austin, people in San Francisco ask me the question, "What's it like in Austin?" And I'll say, it's a lot hotter, but it's just as cool. And I mean hotter in many different ways, right? Not just ambient temperature. But there's a lot of similarities. But I was wondering what your thoughts were. Your walk here versus the walk there. What changed in personality or perspective did you see there?
Fantastic question. So something that the San Francisco walk has really brought to light is the cultural differences between what you were just saying in Austin versus any other city, but specifically SF. So why I chose SF as the second city was because I felt so passionately about the host. She came on walk number 50, and she was like, I love what you're doing. Let me be your first chapter outside of Austin. And she pitched me on hosting. And I was like, that's it.
Business development. Right
Yeah,
there.
she was already a host. She had created these intimate gatherings called the Confidence Studio, where people would gather on journal prompts, and it was highly intentional. And I was like, this is the perfect person. And I had been really waiting diligently until I just found the right person to move it there. So SF was a unique choice as well, because I see, in my experiences with SF, it to be the polar opposite of Austin culturally. I find San Francisco, every time I visit, to be one of the most painfully transactional cities that I've ever been to. And I'm talking like, you'll be outside in a line at a party and people are like, where do you work? And if you don't give them an answer that's impressive enough, they look right through you like you don't exist. I mean, that's the culture of San Francisco. And the walks are the absolute opposite. The walks are welcoming. They are come one, come all who have these shared values. This is not a space for transaction. So it is the opposite to San Francisco's city culture. So Adele, which is the name of my host in SF, was in such a unique, she had it, in my view, way, way harder than I did. Because I had the virtue of this city matching the culture of my event. But Adele didn't have that luxury. San Francisco's culture is way different than the culture of the walk. So I needed to see if this walk could exist and thrive in San Francisco, it could thrive anywhere. Like SF was the pilot because it was what you just said, drastically different. So there are some growing pains that I haven't had to experience here, where people will show up to the San Francisco walk and they will fall into the old default patterns of, hey, this is me, this is what I do for work, this is what I'm trying to sell you. And she'll have to have these conversations with people to say like, hey, we got to be rooted in this intention. And sometimes those people will not show up again because this is not what they are interested in doing in their spare time. And then sometimes they'll actually be on a road to redemption and be like, you know what? That's not what I was expecting it to be, but it was way better than I was expecting it to be. And I actually really got along with people and I feel like I was seen as a human being. So to answer your question, drastically different cultures, they require a drastically different treatment from the host.
But in San Francisco, there's probably even a greater need.
100%.
People like, wow, this is what I really want.
Because it's so
because
lacking.
they're constantly bombarded by, superficialness. And here's what I like about your events.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a collector of ideas, thoughts, and every time I go to your events, it's selfishly I'm learning so much with people. You don't have to pitch. You don't have to convince. It's more like, wow, this really happens here? I didn't know that.
In the interest of time, because it looks like we're losing out for people, this looks like this walk has ended. But just to answer that very, very quickly and directly, the only intentional thing I do is I do invite. I make it very clear about who I curate. I want people to show up.
Yeah.
And it's public, but I put a very strong intention of, hey, I want you there this week because I want you to meet X. Or if somebody's in town, I want to make sure. But the dirty secret that only a handful of people know, but this is the truth, once again, it's very selfish. My monthly and weekly events, I do a weekly event except for the third Thursday, every Thursday morning. They're for me. They're not for y'all. They're for me, and I get to catch up and meet with a bunch of people. And frankly, I can knock out 8, 9, 10 meetings in 2 hours that are 10, 15 minutes long instead of 5, 10, 15 hour-long coffee meetings.
Yeah.
And so I consolidate them. It's my productivity hack. And it looks like it shows up as community, but it's not. It's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here, y'all.
Great question. This was wonderful.
Yeah,
thank you very
so
much.
Appreciate it, and thank you
Last
for
question. So what's your community going to be?
Yeah.
curious people just like you, asking questions, figuring it out, and topics that I'm interested in. One of them being this, another one being about how do you, like more psychology-driven topics. Like Art of War is something that I want to talk to you about. This man has dozens of Art of War copies in his house, right?
Sun Tzu?
Yeah.
Sun Tzu, yeah.
So, yeah, I just started reading in high school. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. I read a version of it. I try to read a version of it once a year. Different versions. There's all kinds of different versions and translations and all that. And where you are in life will give you context of what it's actually saying. The lessons are the same lessons. The words are the same words, but how you think about it because you're
Yeah.
either aged or experienced, you've got something else going on. It's, just,
Yeah.
it's kind of my reset.
That's
I
awesome.
haven't done it in a while. I need to. Thank you for reminding me.
Of course.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.